Hi, welcome back to another episode of The Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein, here on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia. And today I've got a special set of guests. We're going to be talking about benefit corporations and B-Corp. We did a show, which you'll have heard, the last show we aired was with Congressman Jamie Raskin and Jim Epstein, who's not related to me, about benefit corporation and the legislation that Congressman Raskin passed when he was the state representative of Maryland back in 2010. That was the legislation that allowed for a benefit corporation, and we're going to talk about that. So if you heard that show, this is going to be kind of the continuation and a little bit of a deeper dive into the background of benefit corporation and B Corp. And my guests, who I'm going to introduce in a second, are very, very knowledgeable. First, I'll introduce Rick Alexander. Rick is an attorney. He has practiced law for 26 years at Marsh, Nichols, Arsht, and Tunnell, and he's also been a managing partner for 4 of those. In 2015, he became the head of legal policy at B-Lab, and B-Lab is the organization that certifies benefit corporations. We're going to talk about that. And currently, he's working there as a fellow. He creates the framework and the policy to support responsible corporate ownership. And that's really what we're talking about, is responsible corporate ownership. Rick has prepared the initial drafts of both the Delaware and the ABA model benefit corporation legislation, and is author of the first comprehensive book on benefit corporations, which was published last year in 2018. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lauren. Good to be here.
Thank you. I had one quick question. When you said ABA model, what does ABA mean?
That's the American Bar Association.
Okay, American Bar Association. I was like thinking, I could not figure it out. Great. Thanks for clarifying that. And what's the name of the book, by the way?
The book is called Benefit Corporation Law and Governance, Pursuing Profit with Purpose.
Awesome. We'll give you a plug at the end of the show, too. And my other guest, unfortunately, he's on the phone, but he is local to here in Arlington. His name is Ben Garthwaite, and Ben is a senior vice president and one of the co-founders of a company called Marsh Group. Marsh Group is a research first company that understands influence and measuring the way people and organizations think to make choices. The company is an Inc. 5000 Hall of Fame awardee and an American Marketing Association Gold Top 50 firm. They're also a certified B Corp since November of 2017. However, they're not a benefit corporation, and we're going to talk about that. Ben, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
And they're both on the phone, so hopefully you'll be able to hear them. Ben, you're in Florida today, right?
I am vacation.
And Rick is in Delaware, the home of the corporation.
Indeed.
All right, well, let's get this thing kicked off. So I'm going to give a little background for our listeners if you hadn't heard the previous show, and I'd highly recommend you listen to the show with Congressman Raskin and Jim Epstein. So there's a long history to corporations, but the idea is that in 1811, New York State invented free incorporation and limited liability. And that was really the beginning of how people can come together, form a corporation on their own without the approval of another authority. At one point, it was the king, and create these limited liability corporations where the owners, the people who ran it, had very little liability if something bad happened and other things. Well, we've seen it's been over 200 years now that corporations have been able to form this way, and a lot of folks feel that there's been a negative impact because corporations are kind of like a straw man. There's no one person that's truly accountable. And so just for a little bit of background on that, Rick, if you'd like to jump in and just kind of talk about that for a second, what your sense is of how it's been going so far with corporations, these limited liability type corporations.
Yeah, that's a great starting point, and I'm glad to be on the phone with somebody who knows their corporate history so well. And look, I would say, I think I would start by saying some very good things about corporations. And I spent 26 years doing transactions as a corporate lawyer. And the fact is, there's all kinds of technologies that are important to the modern world, from canals and railroads and telephones and telegraphs and the internet to many other things. But one of the key technologies in moving from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy to an information economy has been the corporation, because it allows lots of individuals to put their money together and, as you say, not risk their entire savings and allow corporations to aggregate large amounts of capital and then use those to provide goods and services. And I'm a free market type of capitalist person, and I see a lot of good that has come from the corporate form and the free market. I think the problem that a lot of us are seeing is that as the world speeds up and becomes more global and interdependent, and as we use a lot of the resources and approach a lot of planetary boundaries, there's no guardrails around the corporate enterprise. And if I could sum it up in like one sentence, I'd say the issue is that those corporations, in a free market economy, are driven largely by making a profit, and they can often make a profit by externalizing costs. And that means you end up having great inefficiency, or what you might call a market failure. So really good to date, but also lots of damage starting to be caused, and a lot more potential for a lot more damage.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that, Ben, I do want you to weigh in on this, but I think to kind of put a finer point on the idea of externalizing costs, that a corporation, officers of a corporation, have a legal responsibility to keep profit as the main driver of their business decisions. And if you're a publicly traded corporation and you're an officer and you make a decision based on something other than profit, you could very well be sued and get into trouble. So, and also laws since then, like Citizens United, and others, have made corporations more like people, but in fact, they're not people. But we'll just talk about that point of that they do have to keep profit as the most important thing. And I don't think anyone who is legitimate would say that a company shouldn't make profit. A company needs to make profit. That's how they exist and grow and pay for salaries and all the things that people do to work. Then we now have the idea of a benefit corporation, which is a very simple idea. And before I get into that, Ben, I wanted to get your sense, because I know you work at a for-profit corporation that is also a certified B Corp. What do you see as some of the kind of the problems with the traditional corporation that's not a B Corp?
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody that came through business school in a couple different big places, and I think about all the finance classes, accounting classes, and every measure is about net present value and what's the expected return, and every decision can be brought into that framework. And I think for the company, for Marsh Group, that's a very short-term perspective, and that's one angle. And I think that's the challenge, right? How do you still have a long-term perspective and think about the world around you and the future generations, and be thoughtful of that while operating business? That's kind of the challenge we've been faced with, and why we are so appreciative of the B Corp model as a good mechanism to help address that.
Awesome, great. Well, and I can't wait till we get into some of the bennies, but to be again putting some of the finer points on this, and I'm happy to be the fall man on this, because I know no one wants to be seen as anti-business, and I am the last person who's anti-business. Like you, Ben, I went to business school. My first job was at the startup. I've had several businesses. I run a business now. I've signed the front of checks many times to pay people, but I've never been an officer in a corporation. However, I do see that our environment suffers because corporations can put the environment below profit. Communities suffer businesses can make decisions that are harmful to communities, harmful to individuals, harmful to really anything other than, and we see it. I mean, we see it in the companies that, of course, break the law, but some of these things are legal and not against the law to do, that do have those negative impacts. And then, of course, we all bear the brunt. So, then along comes the idea of B Corp. And Rick, tell us a little bit of background of B Corp.
Great. Okay, and I'll just start by reminding everyone that B Corp is a certification offered by B Lab, and B Lab is a nonprofit organization involved in making business a force for good. And then Benefit Corp, which sounds like B Corp but it's different, is a legal form, and they're related in the sense that part of B Lab's certification, in addition to achieving like certain scores on an impact measurement scale, in addition to that, we ask any business that certifies to have a form where they don't prioritize shareholder value over all other values. And in a lot of jurisdictions, the only way to get that was to create a new form, and that's the Benefit Corporation. And so now there are benefit corporation laws in 35 states in the U.S. There's also a law in Colombia, in South America, in Italy, in Europe. And last Monday, British Columbia in Canada was the first Commonwealth jurisdiction to introduce a statute in their legislature. So hopefully they'll have it soon. And Benefit Corporation it's really just a slight modification of, you keep all the normal corporate laws, directors and shareholders electing directors and things like that. But the director's duty is altered so that they have a duty, yes, to pursue profit, but to do it in a way that does no harm to the world, where they also consider the interests of other stakeholders.
Right. And it's an overlay. So Benefit Corporation, again, and I think you make a really good point, Benefit Corporation is kind of like along the lines of C Corporation or S Corporation or LLC. It's just an overlay on the formation of your corporation, the legal entity that is between you and the state that you incorporate in. B Corp, as Rick was saying, is the nonprofit organization where this all started, the idea of doing business for good. And so what was the history of the B Lab, Rick?
So B Lab's history, it's probably about a dozen years old now. There were three gentlemen from who all went to Stanford together, and after school, two of them started a business, classic, started a business in their garage, selling T-shirts, and they became like the second biggest athletic shoe company. It was called And One. Some of your listeners might remember them. And the third founder of B Lab was an early investor, although his career was in private equity. But that company became very successful. They raised some money from private equity, and eventually it got to a point where it was so large, it made sense to sell it. And at that point, they had run their business. This was an apparel business, so that's a tricky business. But they had run it in a very ethical fashion, both with respect to their own employees, but also importantly, with respect to their supply chain, with a lot of audits of where the clothing was being manufactured. And when they went to sell it, their lawyer said, okay, well, you're a Delaware corporation. You've got outside investors. You have one job: sell it to the highest bidder. And they did what their lawyer told them to do. And within a few months, like everything they had put into that company in terms of ethics and doing the right thing was taken out. And the intellectual property was just used on shirts made by anybody. And so they decided they wanted to find a way for people like them who were, really business oriented and market oriented to do business in a fashion that didn't require that kind of sacrifice of values for shareholder value. And so they came up with this idea of a certification. And 12 years later, there are, I would say, about 2,800 companies around the world. We're in 100 countries, have certified, are certified B Corps, 130 different industries. And I'll tell you, interestingly, we came up with this idea of the Benefit Corporation in order to accommodate what I was talking about earlier, the ability to have certified B Corps have good values in their DNA. But that has taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that part. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just kind of pick up the story there. So a gentleman by the name of Jim Epstein, who's not related to me, knew these three guys and got really inspired. And he reached out to his neighbor, who was Jamie Raskin, who was a state senator of Maryland at the time. And this was 2009. And in this short time frame between 2009 and 2010, State Senator Raskin put forth this piece of legislation because Jim thought, look, if it's really going to work, there needs to be some legal framework for it. He put together this legislation. It passed in Maryland, and Maryland was the first state. And as you said earlier, Rick, now it's in 35 states, and it's flourishing all over the place. And it's doing really well. So now I'd like to bring in Ben because, Ben, I guess it was about, almost 2 years ago that you all decided to become a B Corp. And what was the impetus to become a B Corp? What brought you all to that?
Yeah, so I read about the B Corp movement just in reading articles online, and everything I read was aligned perfectly with the values we put in place in our organization and the leadership group in the company, how we believe the business had to be run. And so it was like an obvious choice as soon as the words were read. Well, we got to do this. We got to be part of it. And there was no turning back. As soon as we were aware of it, we had to be part of it.
And what were the values and beliefs that you felt that you guys resonated with?
I mean, at a really high level, the belief that for the economy to work, it's got to work for all. The belief that we are responsible as individuals, as a business, for thinking for the long term, and that we can't wait for government regulation or someone else to force us to do that. We should do that. We're responsible. And taking care of our employees, thinking about our communities, thinking about our planet, all of that stuff fits underneath that same value set.
And what are some of the things that you do now at your company, Forrest Marsh Group, that you didn't do before that are in alignment with those values?
Yeah, so that will be a long list. Because we're one of the great things about the B Corp movement is it's helped provide kind of a structure for great ways to operate the business if you do have such an alignment. And so we've changed, over the last 2 years. Let's see, we refined a whole set of employee policies. We offer our employees paid volunteer time off. We made a number of commitments to how we're going to measure our success. We committed formally to paying more than a living wage. We've bounded kind of what difference between our exec comp and our employee comp would be. We've changed who we buy our cleaning supplies from. The list, we could go on for hours on just that.
And what are the benefits to the bottom line that you've seen? Because I know a lot of folks listening be like, oh, that sounds like I'm just spending money, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
To the bottom line, I think our retention is better because the employees and our attraction and retention. So people come to work for us and they're deciding between choices of they're talented folks. You're recruiting people in data sciences today. There's a lot of places they can go, but the ones we want and the ones that want to work for us, they align on values and they'll come work for us over somebody else, and they'll stay. And they're not staying because, not that we're not paying good wages, we actually are, but they're not staying because, they can't get 5% more down the street. They're staying because they care about what we're doing and they want to be part of it. They believe in it.
That's awesome. And Rick, what have you seen as the benefits of folks who get the B Corporation stamp of approval?
So definitely what Ben mentioned, retention is, that's the number one thing we hear. When I first came to B Lab, I actually assumed it was the consumer-facing label because you can obviously put the IP on pack and on your website and things like that, and that is valuable to people. And there's there have been some third-party studies that show the value of that brand. But really, the number one thing we hear is recruitment and retention, because people want to work. They want more than just a paycheck. And one thing I just want to point out, by achieving B Corp certification, Ben is in a very select group, and all those things he was talking about doing, there's a free tool online. The tool that you use to certify and yet you get verified against is available for anybody to go on our website, and you can walk through those questions and learn about buying better cleaning supplies, giving your employees better policies and better benefits and things like that. So that's something, we're a nonprofit that we make available to anyone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we're going to talk about what does it take to become a B Corp certified. And there is if you go to the website, the B Corp, there is a survey which is part of it. And a lot of companies may qualify in a lot of things, but we'll talk about in a minute. I want to talk about I'm going to talk some more about the benefits. So I was just reading that there was a study done by MBA students here at University of Maryland, and it showed that the main reason businesses choose to file as B corporations was for recognition of their values and a marketing benefit of those values. And folks who now the talent pool is so competitive, that's part of your customers are your talent. And you need to, like Ben was saying, you need to be able to attract them and keep them with these type of intangible things. And that costs money. Hiring people, losing someone who's really good costs a lot of money. And another thing, which we hadn't talked about yet, is that, often shareholders, even employees, judge a company by its long-term financial success. And when you can keep people in place and add more value through some of these B Corp concepts, you add more long-term value, getting away from that quarter-to-quarter kind of, hey, what did you do this quarter over last quarter? Because that has been our focus. Can I ask Ben, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think that's probably the most tangible benefit. We can go back and say, pre-B Corp, what was our, how long did it take us to fill a position? How much turnover do we have? Those are things we can measure now, and we can actually, we can say that's improved in this manner. On top of that, the other thing that I see is, as you talk about a culture, the culture of a growing company, and kind of what the mindset of the collective organization is, we've set a very clear culture, and it starts to permeate through all the decisions that all the supervisors, department leads, and employees are making. And so, beyond the recruiting and attraction, this is a great way for us to be really clear about what we care about organizationally, and for people to kind of, it's very clear the expectation of how we expect them to evaluate decisions. And it's not hey, if I cut this guy here, I can find someone that's 20% cheaper and make a buck, because that will go against our company culture. So it's been great in that respect as well.
Are your employees also looking at the B Corp concept and bringing ideas to the table?
Well, definitely. I think one thing that we still have as a growth area here is harnessing kind of all of their, energy and thoughts and intellect. I think we've got kind of a lot of folks leading individual departments that are, whether it's our purchasing department or our HR or office group, who are, who have it, like they understand the standards and they're really on the lookout for ways to improve. And then there are other employees who, they'll come up to me and say, hey, I love that we're doing this. I want to be part of it. Just let me know how. And we're still working to kind of get the most out of all of that.
Maybe that's an opportunity for Rick and his team.
There's a lot of community work, so that people who want to sort of do the improvement, and they'll do like hackathons and things like that to find places to raise their scores. There's a lot of community activity where we might help to coordinate, but part of what we want to do is enable people to have this community of like-minded businesses that can pull together.
And has it been difficult, Rick, to get this to get benefit corporation in more states? I know 35 states is a lot. I think that's actually about the number to need to ratify a constitutional amendment, right?
So I would say that for the most part, yes, Maryland broke the dam, and we appreciate that. But once that happened, and people saw it was not so hard to do, there was a lot of activity very quickly, and it was very much like a bipartisan. We're proud of the fact. I can't remember the exact number, but we got I think more than 20 unanimous votes, on the issue, and the reason for that is that it's a solution to problems that people. You might often think of people more to the left side of the spectrum worrying about things like climate change and social issues, but one of the issues on the right side is often, but we don't like government solutions. And so this sort of satisfies everyone because it's a way of enabling businesses to solve societal and environmental problems. So we got a lot of momentum very quickly. And the resistance that we tended to see was not political so much as I would say, I'm a lawyer based. A lot of the laws, in a lot of states, the corporate law amendment process is really controlled by the Bar Association. And for whatever reason, some lawyers didn't like the approach. And so that was where we got held up. But what happened was after we got a bunch of key states, we stopped using our resources to pass more because you didn't really need it because you could always incorporate in Delaware or California and wherever your business is located. And we started focusing on helping people, actual individual businesses become benefit corps. And so since then, it's just sort of trickled in.
And let's talk about what it takes to become a B Corp, to get B Corp certified, because obviously becoming a benefit corporation is just a form that you fill out with your state. But a lot of the states require you to get this stamp of approval. What, Ben, what did you have to go through to make that happen?
Yeah, right. So when I read about this and I said, as described earlier, we have to be part of this, not a choice. I went out, there's a website that you go to, and it's called, of course I'm wrong here, but my recollection is called something like the B Impact Assessment. And you go in and you fill this thing out, and it asks you a bunch of questions on, how are you treating your employees, what impact are you having on the climate, what's your corporate governance, basically just like a real long quiz. And you finish that and it kind of says, it spits out a number, and that's kind of how well you're doing, I guess. It's like a scorecard. And there's a standard you've got to be under, I don't remember what the number is, 80 or something like that, points that you have to score in order to be able to qualify as a B Corp.
Yeah, that's right.
Did I describe that properly?
Yeah. Well, it's you're right. The site is B Impact Assessment. That's correct. And I think, how many points can you get, Rick? It's quite a few.
Theoretically, you could get 200 points. Right.
And it takes about 30 minutes to go through this. But how many points do you need to certify?
You need 80 to certify.
And from what I understand, the questions kind of deal with different kinds of businesses. So that's why you have like a maximum of 200.
So the way it works is first you put in some information about what industry you're in, your geography, how many employees you have. And so you'll get a different set of questions based on your business's individual characteristics. And then there's part of the scoring is based on, these ideas of, okay, well, do you measure your electric use? And that helps you get more points on the environmental side. And I think there's like 120 points available there. But then you can get additional points if you have a business model that's specifically designed around addressing some social or environmental problem. So if you have a product that actually helps people reduce their carbon footprint, or if you're majority owned by women or minorities, you get like points for having a business model. So there's sort of the standard set of things that get you points, and then there's having an impact business model. One thing I think it's important to say is that in most states, you have to measure if you become a legal benefit corp, you have to measure yourself against a third-party standard, but you do not have to get a certification. It's just you need to measure yourself, but you would never have to like actually go to B Lab and get certification.
And is B Lab the only folks that are giving this certification?
So our certification is sort of comprehensive and also gives you an actual score, and that's unusual. A lot of similar metrics, like there's a well-known one that's put out by the UN called the GRI, and then there's another nonprofit organization called SASB, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, and they have a set of metrics, and those are excellent, and we actually have some cross fertilization with them, but they don't necessarily give you a score. And I don't know who else does the certification. There may be, accountants who do assurance under like an ISO certification. So there's other things. I think we tend to think that we're unique in that we gather all those aspects together. But there's lots of things you could use if you were a benefit corp other than B Labs.
I need to take a quick break for the station. I'll be back in just a second. Hi, I'm Lauren Epstein. Every week I talk about jobs and careers on 96.7 FM, Arlington, Virginia at 10 a.m. Mondays. Welcome back to the show. You're listening to the Lauren Epstein Show here on 96.7 FM. I am your host, Lauren Epstein. With me today is Rick Alexander from B-Corp and Ben Garthwaite from Marsh Group here in Arlington. And we're talking about B-Corp. Rick, you kind of left off about other organizations that offer this, but you're really kind of the gold standard of doing this type of assessment.
I'll take that.
You'll take that. Okay, sure. And if I have a business and I don't want to do the Benefit Corporation, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to do this certified B Corp thing, what's the first thing I do?
So I think the legal piece is a small piece of it, and exactly what Ben described is the way to start. Go through that assessment, see how you did. Are you close? Are there things you should do? And when you get sort of close, then you want to start thinking about, one, getting B Lab to verify your score, and two, making sure you have a legal structure that accommodates. Now, a lot of smaller businesses are just owner operated, maybe set up as an LLC. And it's very easy to do the legal change there because you just change your operating agreement. It's only when you have a corporate form that it might be more complicated and you would have to consider becoming a benefit corporation. And often, even that's not that complicated if the owner and the operator are the same person or the same group of same people in a family, something, or a couple of friends. But if you have outside investment, then it becomes a little bit more of a chore to explain to your investors why you're making this change. So there's sort of a sliding scale about the difficulty of the legal piece.
But on the B Corp side, I go through the questionnaire. Mm-hmm. And when I go through the questionnaire, not only does it ask me questions, but it gives suggestions on how I can change, right?
Yep, exactly.
So I get some consulting there, and then I have to pay a fee. Is that correct?
Only if you want to get it verified to become a B Corp.
And
no fee involved. You can, there's all this functionality in there, so you can do improvement of your impact, but no fees are incurred until you decide you want to certify.
And what's the fee?
I think it starts at $500 for small companies, and for multi-billion-dollar companies, it can be in the hundreds of thousands.
And I'll ask Ben. Ben, how long did it take to get your B Corp certification?
So I announced that we were going to go after it to the company. There was an initiative in February of 2017, and then we were certified in November or December. So it did take a solid 9 months, although I'll say that's because, we were doing it concurrent with a number of other priorities. And I think when I took that questionnaire the first time, we were close, but we were probably 15 points below where we needed to be certified. So we had to make some changes to our process, document some of our policies, all great improvements, but they took a little bit of time to get in place.
Which is probably typical for most companies. And how did folks react when you told them that you wanted to do this? Like not just obviously your partners said okay, but
yeah. I have never, so we do an annual meeting every year where we get up and talk to the staff about, a large number of things. And I announce this at the end of the annual meeting. And we've been doing these meetings for, a decade plus. And this is by far the single most feedback that I've ever gotten. Overwhelmingly enthusiastic, positive, thrilled about it, can't wait to be part of it. Zero dissenters in the company, at least vocally.
Wow. And what one or two or what policies, what changes could you call out that you think have made the biggest difference either for your company or for the externalities or for people? Which one they like the most?
So I think one thing we did is we kicked off a program that we called Serve, and that's
I'm sorry, it was called what?
Serve. It's us contributing to our local community in a way that takes advantage of what we do best. So we're a research corporation. We do outreach, and we help clients solve problems. And so what we did is we kicked off this where we're taking on community projects and challenges like they're paying clients. Of course, we're not charging them anything. So we did one thing with the Arlington Free Clinic where they weren't getting anyone there are very few people that needed it were getting their dental services. So we did a whole research project, an outreach project to help them with that problem. We did that all on the company. So a number of our researchers, creative folks were able to engage on that project. Everyone loved being part of that.
And who did it benefit? Who's the client, quote unquote?
So the client is the Arlington Free Clinic. And then ultimately who it benefits is it benefits those folks that were getting their services, their medical services, and were at high risk for having long-term dental issues that they didn't do anything preventively, who were communicated with in a manner that motivated them to get that preventative dental care from Arlington Free Clinic.
Now, curious, that's really kind of cool. So was there like a lot of competition to get on this project?
Oh no, because we called them because we were working with them on.
I mean, from your employees, did a lot of people want to do it?
Yes, I get that question. Completely. Yeah, right. So one of the challenges we have, right, is like we have 100 people that want to work on it, and we really need about a 6-person team. But we have other projects going, and they'll have an opportunity to contribute in the future, if not on that one project. But that is definitely something we face because there is a lot of enthusiasm. And
was there learning and takeaway for the business side, the profit side?
Definitely. I mean, we're not saying we don't care about the business sustainability and making money in the end of the day. Because if we're going to have the greatest impact and be around in 20 years, we need to be a profitable business. We're balancing those. So certainly, when we're looking at what we can help with, we're looking at what community challenge makes a difference and that we can be a part of, and then we can learn from, and that can be a qualification for us as we're bidding for work with other people later. So taking on work with that population segment on that issue. That's something that other paying clients may be interested in the future as well.
That's great. So it becomes a marketing tool.
Not the number one goal of it, but downstream definitely could be.
And Rick, what do you think is one of the more popular or a notable story of a B Corp having some success with their B Corp status? What have you seen? The upside, the good stories.
Yeah, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but earlier I wanted to tell this story, and it is a financial success story, not a feel good story, but I just think it's worth noting.
Money feels good.
Yeah. So one of the biggest B Corps out there is Danone North America. So Danone's the French conglomerate that sells different brands of food all over the world, and in the U.S. they have a huge operation like Silk Milk and Raisin and Dannon Yogurt and things like that. So they have like a $6 billion business in the U.S., and they've certified that entire business and other parts of their business around the world. And, we were talking about financial earlier and how it can make you successful, but it's important to remember that return is only one part of financial success. The other is reducing your risk, and doing all these things and like inculcating good values throughout the culture of your organization really reduces the risk of your organization And so at Danone, they have, a multi-billion-dollar credit facility led by, BNP Paribas and all these, international banks. And they get a reduction in the margin they pay on the money they borrow based on the size of the certification, but the amount of businesses that they're able to certify under B-Lab. So if they go from, they're now about 30% certified to 50% certified, their cost of capital will go down. So it's kind of a doing well by doing good story, but also just important, I think, to show that this is an idea that works like in small businesses, but in large businesses as well. And the financial community really recognizes the value of a B certification. That's
a great story. That's awesome. I mean, I think, when you're reducing risk, obviously the money's cheaper, but if you're reducing risk, then the likelihood of bad things happening goes down.
Yep.
That's really cool. So, this is obviously a growing thing, right? It's
mm-hmm.
What, 9 years old, 35 states. What's the future look like, Ben, I would say, for your company and B Corp?
Well, for us, I mean, our first year was really about inward focused, improving our processes, as I kind of talked about a little bit. And I think as we look forward, it's important to us that, as we've grown quite a bit, is how do we kind of take all of our resources and energy and make more of a systemic impact than kind of some of these more band-aidish things we've done in the past. So we've been looking at a couple areas to do that. So for us, it's engaging directly with B-Lab. So we've been talking with them as recently as this week about how we can use research in our services to help spread the movement to a greater number of firms. So instead of 2,600 or 2,700, it's meaningfully larger than that and as rapidly as possible. And then secondly, taking on some important issues that can address major issues or major challenges societally. So we're a founding member of the National Opioid Action Coalition, and we are making a real investment in building that organization.
Awesome, that's really cool. And Rick, where do you see the future of B Corp in the next 5 or 10 years?
So, yeah, I think I would go right back to something Ben said, which is 2,700 companies is great, but there's a lot of companies in the world doing a lot of damage, and so I think we've really gotten a great system, and now it's about growing it. And I think B-Lab internally is thinking about lots of ways to sort of grow the platform. For me personally, I'm trying to think about a wholesale maybe rather than a retail model, and I'm looking to focus my work on investors and bringing this idea to investors and getting them to understand that having one company in their portfolio succeed by externalizing costs is self-defeating.
Say more about that, because I think that's really I think you hit the nail on the head. Companies succeed at externalizing costs. Tell us what
most investors these days are what they call universal owners. You either own an index fund or you're very diversified through mutual funds or through your pension. And a lot of what I'd say investors aren't really even like investors. They're just beneficiaries. Like students and parents all benefit from endowments, and the community benefits from foundations, and insureds benefit from insureds money. So all that money in the market is really invested, for the most part, generally in the economy. So to have, an oil and gas company in your portfolio decide it's going to speed up, getting its reserves out of the ground because that will inure to their bottom line, really hurts the investor, because that investor has a portfolio that they're invested in the entire economy, and they want all companies to succeed. And that won't happen if people aren't more focused on turning to renewables or dealing with inequality or human rights issues, because those are all going to come back to bite the economy sooner, not later.
Right. So it's not a political issue. It's really just kind of the facts, right? If we don't turn to renewables, we won't have energy, right? I mean, even if you don't believe in renewables, eventually fossil fuels will run out. I mean, I think I learned that in junior high school. They said, "Hey, there aren't more dinosaurs dying." So the thing that I think that we all want to be clear about is that it's important to build businesses that support people in their lives, to express our creativity and to bring good products and good services to the market, and we can do good in what we're up to. Are there, Rick, any B Corp screens when it comes to investing? Could I go out there and invest in just B Corp?
No, because to date, there's very little B Corp activity in the public markets. Handful of companies have been in the public markets, and most B Corps are, small family-owned businesses, or else, they have private equity and venture capital investing, but not. So there are definitely, funds that do all sorts of impact investing, but not B specific.
And is that what you're looking to accomplish?
I think that, if we could get to a level of public companies available for investment, so that you could start having positive screens for B Corp or even B Corp funds, that will be a great accelerator for the movement.
And what are some of your, so aside from that one argument, do you have other arguments for investors, folks who are listening, to invest in companies that are B Corp?
I think the argument is we have to push, the economy in that direction. The financial answer is a lot of these companies are very successful for some of the reasons you mentioned.
Right.
And there's lots of data showing that. But more importantly, I think we have to push the economy in a better direction. And I also think for a lot of people, it's just an individual choice. To the extent that they have money to invest, they may not be comfortable investing without thinking about the ethical implications of what the money is being used for.
Right.
Just to piggyback on that, we as a company just switched our 401k options to make available all the most socially responsible firms we could on the market, as opposed to the defaults that you typically see. And if in a future state there was a B Corp oriented fund, that would be perfect alignment and would start to show more benefit for being part of the B Corp movement at that point. So I could see that being a future direction for sure.
Cool. Awesome. So, we have a few more minutes left. Do either of you have any other advice that you want to share with folks who might be considering becoming a B Corp or a benefit corporation?
Ben may have better advice than me because he's actually been through it. But I will say that, think incrementally. You don't have to bite it all off. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, go online and just start going through the B impact assessment, because it's just interesting to do. I back when I was at the law firm and I first heard about this, I just sort of did it in my head to see what our law firm would look like, and it's just you learn a lot. There's also a website called B-Corp, Benefit Corp. .net, and that has a lot about the legal side. And today, even though there's only 2,700 certified B Corps, there's about 8,000 benefit corps in the United States. So if becoming certified is too much right now because there's an investment, it's really a good idea to think about just starting with changing your legal form, because it's not that difficult. And I'll also say it's easier to do at the beginning before you've brought in investor capital than after you've already brought it in.
Right. And Ben, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I mean, I think my 2 points would be, one, I mean, we didn't see a significant cost implication to making this move. I mean, the biggest pushback I got in convincing kind of partners and other key decision makers in the company that this is the direction we want to go is really the discussion of, are we saying we're going to put all these things first and it's mandatory to do A, B, C, and D, and there's not a lot of mandatories in this model. There's a lot of we will consider the impact of this. There's a lot of transparency. There's not a lot of mandatories. And then the second thing I'd say is I view B Corp as a community. So one of the benefits you get is you're now a part of a community of companies that care about each other and care about similar things. So that's when it's going to be growing as we reach out to each other, rely on each other, and start to spend money with each other in the future, as opposed to just kind of going at running a business in isolation.
Yeah, and that's actually, Ben, where you and I met at a local meetup of B Corp. So how can folks reach you, Ben, if they want to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my information is up on our website, ForsMarshGroup.com. There's a contact us page on there. I'm glad to talk to anybody about this movement anytime.
And I'll spell that out. It's ForsMarsh, because I didn't get it the first time. And it's the names of the two of the founders. So it's the Marsh Group. And Rick, how can folks reach out to you if they want to ask questions or talk to you?
Yeah, email is the easiest. rick@bcorporation.net.
And also, Rick's Twitter account is @Rick_Alexander, and Ben's is @Marsh Group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I thought it was a very great conversation. I know I learned a lot. Thank you again. And again, you're listening to The Lauren Epstein Show. I'm your host, Lauren Epstein. We'll see you next week.